Five, four, three.
Good evening, and welcome to the Reel McCoy. I'm your host, Meffistoe, and always with me, my hetero life mate. Oh, my feelings. How are you, sir?
I'm good. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good. What is the Reel McCoy, you might ask? The Reel McCoy is your weekly movie podcast where we ask you to go watch a movie, watch it, come back to us, and we break it down and we spin it all around on our little comic book rack of goodness, even though this is not really a comic book show. This month, we kind of started off on this deep dystopian future kind of month where we have movies that kind of have different aspects of a dystopian future or a dystopian whatever. And it's really interesting because last week we talked about Dark City, which kind of connects backstage and story-wise to this week's movie, The Matrix. And to talk to us about it is Mr. Price of Reason. How are you, good sir?
I'm doing good. Thanks for inviting me. This is so great. Matrix is really a good movie to do this type of stream on.
Yeah, I do. We do love to go into the weeds with this thing, and from judging for what you told us backstage, it's going to be a right up your alley because we've got some stuff going on over here. So just tell us what you've been doing lately. Your stuff, everything that you do, like all the platforms you have on are in the description, of course, down below. Go follow Price of Reason, sub to his channel, go to his Rumble, do all that good stuff. But please tell us what you've been working on lately.
Well, on my main channel, I do reviews. I've recently done one for, what have I done it for? For Fall Guy, Challengers, Rebel Moon, a few others. I try to do stuff that I think is cool and people will like. I will say that for some reason, it's a weird thing to say, but I think that somehow in May, I don't know if YouTube changed something, an algorithm or something like that. I just feel like a few people may have missed these last review that I've done, and if they're watching, I think they're actually good. Especially, I thought that the Fall Guy and the Challengers was really, or it's just people don't care about those movies, which is fine too. But
yeah,
those were some good reviews. I'm very proud of them that I did, And in addition, I have a live channel called Price of Reason Live. And that's something that more recently I started, where we do rewatches of Quantum Leap of the original series. But we also, there's other kind of bonus reviews and kind of live streams that I do there from time to time. And I have a channel on Rumble, which is sort of a hybrid between my two YouTube channels.
All right.
This was all very complicated, but hopefully someone understood something.
People in the chat say you're a bit low. You're not on my end, but on their end, it's a bit low. So you just bump up your microphone a little bit if you can, your microphone volume.
Is it better now?
Much better to me. I can hear it clearly.
Chat?
I boosted as much as I can without blowing everybody's ears off.
Well, basically, I did. Sometimes I use a different kind of software, so I think this would have been the standard, but I upped this one, so hopefully they can hear me.
You're much clearer, but chat will tell us in 20 seconds.
To sum up everything I've been babbling about, there's Price of Reason on YouTube, Price of Reason Live on YouTube, there's Price of Reason on Rumble, and you can see reviews and live streams, and if you feel like it, check them out and subscribe, etc.
Definitely. All right. To start us off, Price told us backstage you watched it as you haven't watched The Matrix in a while, and you watched this to prepare for the show. And even though you watched it numerous times, you got an extra experience this time, or was it just reacquainting with how good it is?
First of all, I think that these days what happens is that you learn to appreciate certain things that happened in the past because you've seen how things are over the past maybe 7 years with movies and entertainment. So suddenly you see something that came up in the past and you really learn to appreciate it. And it still holds up. I mean, I haven't seen... Back in the day, I saw The Matrix many times. I had a copy of it. I probably... It's not a movie that I have to really see again to know what happens in it. But because I felt like for a while I haven't actually watched it, maybe because back in the day I watched it so many times, I rewatched it. And as I was watching it, first of all, I was impressed again by how good it is. Whether it be the fights, whether it be just the visuals, the directing, everything about it, but also the concept itself. And this is something that I started telling you before the stream, and you said, "No, save it for the stream."
Yeah.
When I was looking at it, I thought to myself, "This is such a tough sell." When it comes to, I'm imagining somebody went to see some executives at a studio and explained to them what they want to do in this movie, and I can't imagine an executive that even understood what the people were pitching him. Because it's so out there, and the fact that the movie was even made and made so well, that is something really unique. And I feel like today, studios don't take gambles on such extravagant, interesting things. They do the opposite. They're looking for all these sequels, even sequels of this thing, which shouldn't even have sequels.
Yeah.
They look for that kind of stuff instead of actually coming up with these original ideas the way this movie was.
Feelings?
Well, to be fair, as we discussed last week, this movie wasn't exactly what they would call a true original.
Yeah. Brahma Bull's in the chat, and he was here with us to talk about Dark City, and he was the one, I literally went back to watch it, and if I specifically looked at my face, as my face kind of realized, oh shit, I've never thought that the Dark City story was basically The Matrix, but the entire trilogy of the story. Correct. Which was leading up to him being the one and having this massive change on this experiment of sorts. It was an experiment in Dark City, and it was done by an alien race rather than an AI, which is in this case. But the theme of Dark City is more akin to sort of the same theme that you got in The Matrix, but in the 3 movies rather than just the one. Because if they just left this one alone and not have those sequels, it just makes it much, much better.
Well, see, the odd thing, too, is the fact that they automatically allude to the other films in this movie. And they could have left this film on its own at the end. Cut off, I still don't like the Superman ending.
You don't?
bugs the hell out of me.
It's a bit too Hollywoodish, that ending with him flying. But
Yeah.
I think that with that ending or without, I agree that should have been the only movie of Matrix ever made. I think that they should have ended it there. I didn't need to see anything else that happens after that. And I feel like once they made the second and the third one, the whole tone of them, it almost feels, I'm not saying that it feels like it's a different group of people that made it, but it almost feels like it's a different team of people that made it. It doesn't have that same feeling, magic, charm. I don't really know how to explain it. The first one does it, and the second and third one looks like they wanted to collect checks. The studios, they offered a lot of money, and they wanted to make that money, and they made the movies, but it never feels the same as the first one to me.
And I want to thank Jilling for upgrading her membership to a meth addict, true meth addict. Yes. Indeed. But yeah,
no,
you're right.
I agree. Well, it also seems too that also, especially with the second one, they went for more like. Obviously, the first film had its own bombastic stunts and action sequences and set pieces. But especially if you look at the second film, that was just one major set piece after another. That's all it was.
You know what I love, Oh My Feelings? I love the fact that a lot of the audience already are spoiling my behind the screens. So it's a nice little segue to go into our first segment of the night. It is called Behind the Screens.
Sound production, take 2.
Behind the Screens is where we usually turn to All My Feelings and get the lowdown on everything that is behind the scenes and everything and all that good stuff. But since he's a very busy man, I will take up the mantle. So let's get right into it. So the story itself, the sort of the beginnings of actually building up the script, having the concept and all that good stuff, came to the Wachowskis. And for this podcast, because of who the Wachowskis are, I'm going to call them the Wachowskis, not sisters, brothers, not Lana, Lily, Wachowskis, okay? Or directors, just so we're clear, okay? They came up with it while they were writing down and helping with the script for a different movie that we actually covered called Assassins with Stallone and Banderas.
Antonio Banderas.
Their dystopian future, or their dystopian vision, is more akin to the Eastern dystopian vision rather than a Western dystopian vision. If you kind of want to know where we're at, Blade Runner, more of an Eastern thing, and Mad Max Fury Road, more of a Western thing. That's where we're at. The Wachowskis, in order to actually, when you said a price, it was a difficult sell. In order to actually get it to an executive that actually understands their actual vision, they storyboarded the entire film with stick figures. And then they hired 2 comic book artists, Jeff Darrow and Steve Skroce, I think that's the pronunciation, to create a 600-page storybook for the entire movie, to just put it in the hands of Warner Brothers, because they kind of had a working relationship with Warner Brothers. I think Warner Brothers, I haven't checked, but they distributed or published Bound. That was the Wachowskis did. I'm not sure.
Yes, and that's also the reason why Joey Pants is in the movie.
Exactly. That's why Joey Pants is in this movie. But it was kind of circling about, I think Warner Brothers had an option for it, but they didn't know what to do with it. They saw the thing, but they couldn't really, approve it. And by the time Joel Silver got involved, because Joel Silver is a massive, like an action producer guy and has a lot of pull with the studios. Once he was on board, they agreed to a $60 million budget, which was to Warner Brothers at the time was pretty hefty. Keanu Reeves was not the first guy.
He was not
guy.
even the fourth.
He was the last that they would ever think of. Yeah.
Yeah, and the Wachowskis.
Oddly enough, I think even Sandra Bullock was offered the opportunity because at one point in time they're thinking about making Neo a woman.
Really? I didn't.
Yeah,
I didn't see
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So the deal was, it was first offered to Will Smith, and
Right.
Will Smith did not understand the concepts, did not want to do this. Looked at the script and he was like, "What the fuck is this?" And he said, "Fuck off." So he did a different movie. He did Wild Wild West instead, and he is still bitter to this day, but for different.
To be fair, in interviews, even if he's bitter, he usually kind of says, well, he says the obligatory, well, you know, Keanu Reeves did do that well. He tries to say it nicely, but I can't imagine anybody passing on the role and deep down inside thinking they did a good thing.
Yeah.
And it's a bit of an issue because most of the actors that turned down the role turned it down for reasons that have nothing to do with the script. Nicolas Cage was offered the role. Nicolas Cage, back in the mid 90s, we did a full month on his work, and he was hot when it comes to like action movies. And this was kind of an action movie. He turned down the role because he didn't want to spend 5 months away from his family. Same goes with Val Kilmer. Val Kilmer was up for the role of Neo. Then he was up for the role of Morpheus, but he ended up turning it down because it was such a long commitment because of reasons that I'm going to touch upon in a minute.
Well, even Leonardo DiCaprio was offered the role, but he didn't want to do one after Titanic due to the fact he didn't want to be in another CGI fest.
Exactly. And to be fair, after watching a 2-hour behind the scenes documentary, there was a lot of stuff that was practical that I thought it was for sure a CGI movie. We'll touch upon that when we kind of discuss the movie. So it was offered to Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp was like the last of the Wachowskis to do hot young actor list. He didn't want to do the role, and the studios came up with Keanu because his star was actually waning down because he was in Speed, which was great. But then he did Devil's Advocate and Minnesota. What was that movie? He did Johnny Mnemonic, which was
yes,
a different kind of dystopian future.
Hey, and also don't besmirch the Devil's Advocate, okay?
I did not,
because just like Al Pacino's the devil, I'm a fan of man.
I am a fan of man.
That was a good movie.
That is a good movie. That is a great movie, but that's what they said. His star was waning down.
I can understand that. I don't know if to say exactly waning, but he wasn't okay, let's be honest. He wasn't at the top of the Hollywood list. And also, I still think until this day, he's a very likable actor. He has a very likable presence, and you like seeing him on screen. But is he the best actor? Meaning, I don't think that he's the best actor I've ever seen. He's just one that people enjoy seeing. Sometimes that's all you need. And I think that for this movie, surprisingly, he was a really, really good fit. I wouldn't have seen it. I wouldn't have known it in advance, but somehow...
No.
A lot of people discounted him in this role. And
I think they're completely wrong.
Basically, they thought, and it said so in the behind the scenes, kind of a kindly remark that Laurence Fishburne might be the top billing for this one because they didn't quite know if Keanu was the thing.
Well, and also to be on the side for Keanu is itself, he's like a pleasant cipher. He's like the main character in any RPG game where you are the silent protagonist. You're just
kind of. He put himself in that position. And Davina Duckworth, Bram Stoker's Dracula, same deal. It's a great movie. He's not the main dish in it.
And he's not very good in it. I think anybody that saw him kind of chuckled. That's not the highlight of that movie.
No, definitely not.
Gary Oldman is the star of that.
Gary Oldman is the guy. Right. So Carrie-Anne Moss has a weird connection to this movie because she was actually in a TV show called Matrix about a dystopian future and fantasy and kind of that sort of thing. Back in 1993, it's a Canadian TV show, ran for 13 episodes, was basically that. Fishburne when Laurence Fishburne actually got the script, he was one of those guys who said, I don't really understand the script. I don't understand what my character is. So the Wachowski actually introduced him to Neil Gaiman's Sandman series, the comic book series, to understand. They wanted him to be the kind of Sandman, Morpheus, Dream, kind of that guy. And through the comic book, he understood sort of what his mannerisms are supposed to be. And I saw it like I said, in documentary. Somebody said something that I never thought about, but it's very interesting. In The Matrix, Morpheus is very fatherly. Outside, in the Nebuchadnezzar, as the captain of the Nebuchadnezzar, is very motherly. So very has sort of a comforting and very willingness to kind of do the motherly thing, is to hold you and to guide you in that way. But in The Matrix is more of a stern, stoic father figure, which was very interesting, I thought. Very interesting. So, getting to the actual shoot.
Just a side note, you're talking about some casting stuff too.
Sure.
You know who's going to be picked for Trinity first, right? Who turned it down?
No, I didn't find it.
Janet Jackson.
Put a no on that.
Yeah, and the thing is, in the album that she released after this, she actually has notes referring to the Matrix in the songs. Yeah.
Interesting.
And another person who was actually going to be in this, but was in later ones, which, if you think about it, would make sense if Will Smith was Neo. Jada Pinkett Smith was supposed to be Trinity originally before she got cast as Niobe. But
that's very.
I wouldn't have cast her as anything, to be honest.
yeah, neither would I. But that's just me.
Even the ones that she's in, I wouldn't have cast her in. But,
yeah.
Me too.
But those aren't good movies anyways, so I guess they may as well put her in
She
there.
kind of fit into that whole.
Right.
Right.
Maybe she was a good fit then.
Yeah.
If we're actually talking about casting, the guy who played Dozer was Tommy Chong's adopted son, and he was supposed to be in the sequels, but there's some sort of a disconnect or something like that, and he ended up suing Warner Brothers, I think unsuccessfully. He was trying to get back his role, sort of, or get compensation for it.
You know what? I'll tell you something. I thought that he actually was good in the first one, and when I saw the second and third one and he wasn't there, I actually noticed he wasn't there, and it wouldn't have mattered a lot to the movie because I didn't like those second and third ones that much to begin with, but his presence may have improved it just a little bit. I did like him. I thought that he was good in that role, and I didn't think it was a good idea to kick him out.
I think, Price, it would have helped to connect both films because they have Dozer die in this movie, so they don't have that connection.
Well, no,
they
that's
have Dozer's
actually
wife.
Ron's right on this one. It's actually Tank.
And Hank is the guy who is.
I meant Tank. Tank is the guy that's the son of the Tommy Chong, whatever you were saying.
Yeah,
correct.
Tank was supposed to be in the second and third one, and then wasn't. But I'm saying that I like Tank. I thought he was a good character. That moment, there's a moment in the film that he has this big moment, which, I like him, and it's like you said, we knew how the Matrix looked, and they only talk about in this movie the city of Zion and all that. But once you're sort of taking it to another place with a second movie, having that connective tissue, still having the guy that you're familiar with the first movie, especially that he was from that Zion, that he was part of that world, and removing him, then it didn't help. Now, it wouldn't have saved the movie, in my opinion. It's still, I think there's problems with it the second and third, but it could have made it just a little bit better if he was there.
Another reason why the guy who replaced him was called Link.
Yeah.
Thank you, Paul Hartley, for
also
reminding me.
The actor who plays Link, I will always enjoy because he was the main protagonist of Oz for so many years. So it's it's hard not to like the guy, but also it's like, can this guy get a role where he's standing up for a change? He's gotta be tired of sitting down.
Poor dude. Well, he was walking in Lost, but then he wasn't walking in Lost. Anyway, back back to the behind the screens.
Lost wasn't a
before
good show either, but that's just me.
Yeah.
We're gonna put that aside.
You like Lost?
Before starting the shoot, the main actors who did the sort of the kung fu bits, they had to undergo about 8 months worth of training while they're doing other things, and they had to undergo like deep choreography. They actually brought, because the Wachowski wanted it to have a Hong Kong kind of movie feel to it, sort of the 80s, 90s Hong Kong films, like the martial art films. They brought in Yuen Wu Ping, a Hong Kong filmmaker, to help choreograph the entire everything that you see that has sort of kung fu moves in it. That's what he was in charge of, both before training to do the entire like dance, and while they were actually filming the scenes in Australia.
I see. Well, they look good.
They looked very good, and there's a reason for it, which I'll touch upon in a second. All the actors, all of them, had to read. This is tough. Simulacra and Simulation, the book that Neo actually
Simulacrum and Simulation.
and Simulation,
Yeah.
By Jean Baudrillard. Baudrillard.
Yeah,
Whatever.
it's fine. No, you got it. You're fine.
Anyway, he's a French philosopher, and they needed to. The Wachowskis wanted the actors to be able to explain the Matrix when they're not in the film, so they can explain to people what the Matrix is. Remember, this is before everybody kind of like was in tune with the movie, so they had to explain all of that to actually sell the movie. They came in from that sort of era. Thank you, Potato King. That's his name. And I literally had to go into Google.
Yeah. It's
Baudrillard.
Yeah.
I had to go to Google and to listen to how it's pronounced, and I couldn't.
As an aside, though, could you imagine the press tour for this movie?
Oh,
Just like
it's horrendous.
sitting on like Good Morning America. It's like, so you're in this new movie.
It's horrendous, dude. It is horrendous. And you know what? People knew Keanu from Johnny Mnemonic. They went straight to Johnny Mnemonic, and Johnny Mnemonic was not a well-received movie because of reasons, because it's not really a good movie, even though I kind of like the whole cyberpunk theme to it, and there is cyberpunk stuff in this movie as well. And to sell the Matrix, you really had to know to really explain what it is to people, because it's a very simple concept, but when you're doing a press tour, very difficult to do in like a 5-minute blurb. Anyway, they filmed the entire show. The entire principal photography was shot in Australia, in the same Fox studios that were shot by Dark City. They actually used quite a lot of the sets that Dark City used. When they moved the different cities, they used some of the sort of the subway station, even though they actually wanted to film the subway station scene in the real subway, but it was a logistical nightmare. So they had to put it in the studio. So they used some of the bits from Dark City. We kind of mentioned it last week. Bullet time. Matrix is very well known for the bullet time. It wasn't invented for this movie. It was actually invented beforehand, and it was used in a movie that we also covered called Blade. If you guys don't remember where exactly it is, mostly it was used during when Blade sees...
it's the Deacon Frost on the street when he has the young girl.
Exactly.
Captive.
That scene where it kind of freezes, not freezes, but does a slow motion, then quickly into like regular motion. If you don't know how they actually do bullet time, is basically they set up a scene. What they did for this particular movie is do a full CGI rendering with stick figures, not really stick figures, but they had real characters, without the faces, already rendered out according to the storyboard that they sold for Warner Brothers. They actually used that as a reference point. Did a full CGI rendering of what the actual scene, or actually the bullet time moment, was supposed to look like. Changed a few cameras because it's digital cameras, or like like a visual cameras, like a fake camera, so you can place it wherever you want. And once they were happy with the result, they gave it to a guy called John Guetta, who was the visual effects guy for doing the bullet time. And from that reference point, he knew where to place the cameras, which was a sort of a stills camera on a rail, and the rail is very modular, so you can put it as however you want it set up according to the CGI rendering from before, and then use the actual actor in a green screen environment to do the entire scene. If it's the subway scene where the two actors are on wires, basically, Agent Smith and Neo kind of turning around, kind of looking at each other, shooting the gun, or Neo kind of, doing the old back and, the mumbo dance, we'll call it. All that was done in a green screen with a setup that was done months in advance. So they shot it in Australia, the bullet time, but the whole CGI rendering was done months and months in advance. So they knew exactly what they wanted, which helped them reduce the cost eventually. Right. Injuries, because it's a fun-filled action, and it ties into why the movie or why the fight scenes are so good. Because they had the training, while they were doing the training, it was kind of a dance, right? They don't hit each other. It was kind of a dance. When they were actually filming the scenes, the Wachowskis, and especially the Hong Kong film director, which I was going to say the name again, Yuen Wu Ping, they told him to go hard. So a lot of the actors had a lot of bruises. Now, even before they actually start to film the entire action scenes, they had to wait a little bit and film a lot of Neo's kind of relaxed, non-actiony scenes, because coming into shoot, Keanu Reeves had fusion surgery on his neck because he had an injury on his neck, and he had 2 fused discs, and they had to wait till the sort of surgery kind of recovers in order to film the scenes to not like make him break his own neck again. So they waited a little bit, and then they shot those scenes, and they went super duper hard with all the different punches because it had to look real, and it did. So when I mentioned the subway scene, Reeves' stunt double, Chud Stilinski, which he worked on later in John Wick, he broke several ribs. There's a moment where Neo kind of throws, goes with Agent Smith, and they break the ceiling and drop into the subway. That's the scene where he broke his ribs and hurt his knee really badly. Dislocated shoulder too. Carrie-Anne Moss had a lot of bruises around her hips, her waist, not her hips, because she was in the harness a lot. The cables, because she worked with it and did a lot of stuff with it. She was in the harness such a long time. Like some of the scenes where her stunt double was supposed to do, like the jump between the buildings, she actually did by herself because she was so accustomed to doing the wire work. She just did it by herself instead of her stunt double. Other than that, right. The final cell, we have to show stuff to the studio in order for the studio to actually approve the extra budget that they needed. they actually had the first few minutes of the movie completely edited out with like minor effects. Was the first few minutes of the actual movie where Trinity gets arrested and they have that bullet time moment, that famous bullet time moment.
Oh, with the jump kick. Yeah.
They showed that as a preview to the Warner Brothers executives, and immediately got approved the extra budget that they needed to sort of like you're gonna get budget, but you're gonna get it in increments. So the final like chunk of the stuff got through Joel Silver. They sent it out to the executive. They saw it and was like, done. You're out. We've got it. We've got full confidence. Let's go. Keep going. Which brings us to the start of the movie.
So one last note.
Sure.
Just about the soundtrack.
Oh, I haven't touched upon the soundtrack, but go ahead.
Yes. The main composer of the actual score was such a big fan of, again, we mentioned this during Dark City, of a lot of electropunk, metal, even industrial stuff that he actually contacted TVT Records, which was really like from Dark City was Echo the Bunnyman, but TVT Records had some of the labels for Meepy Meffistoe, who's on there now. I can tell you exactly when they play. When do they come on?
It's so weird because I love the Prodigy and I used to love fucking what's their face, Rage Against the Machine.
Yeah.
Their earlier stuff. I loved it so much, and I was like, damn, this fits so well. So well.
There's so many like even they contacted even old Wax Track Studios, which was a Chicago-based sort of independent label, but they're really known more for industrial rock and stuff. And they had Ministry on there, and Ministry brought on for Bad Blood. Like he basically was able. He got carte blanche to basically go, well, I want remixes of these certain songs. Do you guys want to work on them and get paid for it? Everybody said yes.
And even
like Rob Zombie even immediately just went, okay, you want me to work with them on a remix of Dragula? Yeah. Let's go for it.
Just had to check. Don Davis, who did the score, actually wanted the sort of symphony style. Like he wanted the score, the symphony to kind of marrying in together with the soundtrack. So every time the score stops and it goes into a song of the soundtrack and kind of marries in together with what they were doing with the movie. And I was trying to hear the cutoff points, and I could because it fits it sort of. As one goes down, you always automatically go into a different place. So it's either the continuation of the score or it goes into a song. Mm-hmm. And it marries together so well. And just because he was working strictly on doing the both sides. All right. Cool. So, the movie. I'll start with this. I know it's not the actual start, but we'll start with the entire scene. Price, what do you think about this?
First of all, is my audio still on a good volume? Because I saw Brahma was saying that.
I can hear you really good.
Yeah,
are you sure? Because then I saw that he was saying it's not. So now I raised it more, but now I don't want to be louder than everybody.
No, you're fine. You're not loud. I have everybody on like sort of really loud, so if you're super loud, it just rings in my ears, and you're definitely not. So I don't know. Keep going. If I say any more comments, I'll tell you.
All right. Well, I'll leave it like this. Hopefully, it's not too loud now. Maybe I'll lower it a bit.
No. Just
it's much better now.
No, bring it up a little bit. Whatever it was that you did.
So
you're good. Mm-hmm.
All right. So, what was your question? Sorry, I was still focused on this.
Don't worry about it. We've got Paul Harley, our commander in chief, in the chat. He's good. It's much better. Let's go. So, what I was asking you is, this is the first time we kind of get introduced to the movie without actually going deep into the weeds. It's that first scene where you don't really understand what is still going on,
I
but you
love
know
it.
something special is happening here.
I love it. I love when a movie starts that you have no idea what you're looking at, and even as the characters are supposedly explaining it and you're watching it, and it certainly looks cool, you still don't understand what's going on, but not in a way that you don't understand and you're bored, but you don't understand and you want to know more because you can tell that something, like you said, special is going on. It's not a regular movie, and it immediately it brings you into this feeling that you're about to see something that's different. It's whatever you're thinking, you don't fully understand it. And I can't think of a much better way to start a movie that wants to do this exact thing than what they do. It's great.
Yeah, and it starts off with this, that bullet time moment that we actually saw parodied in Shrek.
Everything.
Like, yeah, basically
Everything, starting from right after this film was released up until about the mid 2000s, this was parodied. Like every single different version of bullet time from The Matrix specifically was parodied in one way.
You know what?
Or another.
They used bullet time so well here. I mean, the thing is, you mentioned the blade thing, and certainly they've used it a lot. They parodied it. They did whatever. But even after all these years, I just watched it before this stream, and it's still such a pleasure to see what they do in this movie. The planning that went into it, the visuals. I still think it looks great.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it kind of the whole point is the flow of the movie. Until I actually sat down, and I many times before, when I talked to all my feelings about this, when you see a movie, even if you saw it like 20 times, it's so different that before preparing for this show, I watch a movie and I'm trying to find the critical point in this. And one of the things that I kind of, stuff that kind of put in my mind, Brahmable in the chat that was here last week and mentioned Dark City, really tuned me onto the story part. But what I was looking for when I was looking at this time around is actually looking at the flow of the movie, how scenes flow from one scene to the next. And one of the things that came up is there is no dull moments in this movie, like none whatsoever. There's always something happening, whether it's a story, whether it's something is always happening. There's no dull moments. Even when Cypher is sitting around and looking at the Matrix, it's something happening. It's like Neo coming into frame and scaring him and like putting him off, and immediately there's some interaction happening.
What's interesting about that too is if you watch it after you've seen it, at that point in time too, he's actually contacting the agent. Right. So literally there was also something very urgent there, and how he urgently shuts down the screens. So like, just in case if he was the one, he'd be able to see the code and realize he's talking to the agent, so he shuts it down. So again, second viewing. And also, just as an aside too, as we talked about in Dark City, is you really don't catch this until you really pay attention to it. You notice the fact that there's such an ambiguity on where this is supposed to be placed, because there is no actual city. You know, the fact that the name of the hotel is called just the Heart of the City. The phone on the phone company, the phone booths, is just City Phone.
Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of the same as Dark City, where there's like the club or the hotel. So you've got places, but they specifically kept it ambiguous, even though they had a lot of trouble when they did the helicopter scene where they were flying into like a restricted airspace at some point.
Yeah,
no.
There are specifically several different site locations where it's like, I know exactly where that is.
Yeah, and they had to digitally erase the Opera House and the bridge as well, because they were in the shot for a little bit, so they had to like put it off because they didn't want it to have any like signs of, oh, this is like Sydney, Australia, right?
Yeah, but they also kept I think it was the AGA building, because they have the giant, like, it's by the radio tower when the helicopter's flying over.
Yeah,
but it's like, I know where that is.
Well, if you know, but yeah. What I wanted to point out, and I said about Cyberpunk, and that first scene with Neo really, when I saw this film for the very first time, really put me in the mood of, oh, wait, this is like Johnny Mnemonic, but a different story where you have that sort of a hacker, like hackers feel with the whole, like somebody's writing him messages of like, look at the white rabbit. And
Well,
then
and also, just as an aside, what exactly they never go into it, which I think that's kind of gives really great credence to the ambiguity of it. Is what is Neo actually selling? And also, it's on Sony mini discs. It's like, oh, this is such a product of the '90s. It's great.
exactly, dude. The first
And
time
also, the guy says, "Hey, it's." Have you ever felt awake but in a dream at the same time? Yeah, it's called mescaline. It's the only
Mescaline,
way to
yeah.
fly. It's like, wow.
yeah, and to me, I saw this on VHS for the very first time. I didn't even see it in the theater because I was in the army. But
Oh,
yeah, I literally saw this. I didn't even know the movie came out. I was so detached. But somebody brought it on. I think about 4 months after the movie came out, or 5 months after the movie came out. It's like, dude, you have to watch this movie. And I was like, me? Why particularly me? And it's like, I know you. You have to watch this movie. They put it on. There were like 20 guys in like an army club, which wasn't really an army club, it's just a fucking room with a TV and a VCR. That was the club, right? And you can feel the sort of the silence in the air because everybody was tuned into the movie. Everybody, even the people who weren't really into sci-fi, were really tuned into the movie. And it was very interesting because that first scene really captured everybody. It was like, I want to know what's going on, right? I want to know what's going on. And then it flowed into the Neo scene where it was, wait a minute, how did it tie into this whole thing? And we're going to stop right here because we're going to do our first game of the night. It is called Missing Marquee. Missing Marquee for Mr. Price and the uninitiated in the chat is where we take 10 posters of movies, have their text written off, we display them, and Price will have to guess which movie this is. And I need a quick little setup. And we're going to go into there and there and here. Don't worry about it. I've got it all prepared in advance. There we go. Price, what is this movie? Chat participation is most welcome, guys. Just give us the name of this movie.
I think I do this one.
All right.
You know what? It seems like I would know it, but it's somehow I don't.
All right. It is Emma Stone, Steve Carell. Anybody in the
She's
chat?
supposed to be Billie Jean King.
She's supposed to be Billie Jean King.
yes.
Yes.
I
It
I
is?
do know the name of it. Yeah, I do. Know.
Yeah. You do know the name of it. It is called, chat
War
is
of the
silent,
Sexes.
Battle of the Sexes.
Battle of the Sexes.
Battle of the Sexes, yes. I actually saw that movie. This is Bewitched with Will Ferrell and Nicole Kidman.
Bewitched is correct.
That is...
It's a terrible movie. I hate it.
It looks like it's something with Richard Gere, maybe?
Yeah, it
Yes.
is Richard Gere and a lot of women.
A lot of women.
A lot of
Is he
women.
like a gynecologist or something? Or some
He is a
dumb thing?
gynecologist in this one,
Oh,
yes.
I know this. I know that there's something like this. I just... I can't remember... I don't remember the name of it. I remember there was something with him and the gynecologist. It was perfect for his
If not, I've got it.
brand,
It is
but
perfect for him.
Yep.
It is
Bravo's
Brahma's
got it. Dr. T and the women.
Right? An oldie but a goldie. I can zoom in a little bit. Let's just say the answer is right in front
Godzilla
of you.
versus something.
Godzilla versus
Is
Mecha Godzilla.
Mechagodzilla.
Godzilla.
Talking about The Matrix. This is Monica Bellucci.
Hi, Monica Bellucci.
A really raunchy film. Let's just say that.
I wouldn't say her raunchiest, but
Chocolat
it's
something, is that
Not
it?
Chocolat. No, Chocolat was not really raunchy.
Oh, sorry.
Ooh, I got you there. Oh, My Feelings. It's a real like doozy. Feelings. Do you know this one?
I cannot remember the name of it, but I know it's not her raunchiest film.
It's a really raunchy film. She at one point she is fully naked in bed with that young boy in the poster. Studio Lau.
That's Melina.
No,
Okay. Yeah.
Melina.
If Modern Times with Charlie
Modern
Chaplin.
Times is correct.
Pet
This was-
Cemetery.
That cemetery is correct.
Weird Science, maybe
Not Weird
nope.
Science, the
No,
other
the
one.
other one, the Wiz. He's a genius.
He's a genius.
Real
He's not-
genius.
He's a
Real genius.
real genius. Is correct.
Superman. This is the Brandon Routh one, I think.
No, it's
No, that was-
the Donner version.
Yeah.
But you did it so fast, and it kind of looked
I-
airbrushed. It seemed too airbrushed to be Christopher Reeve.
No, that's
Sorry,
Mr.
it is.
Reeves.
It
Yeah.
is. It just seemed very airbrushed. Like it
Yeah,
didn't
I
seem-
know.
But it's okay. It is Christopher Reeve. Sorry.
No, it's all right.
The thing is with the other posters is you can definitely tell it's the Superman logo stuff, so I can't.
Yeah.
Last one.
The time something. The time.
Nope.
it's-
Nope. It's Brad Pitt aging backwards.
Yes.
Oh, Benjamin Button.
It is Benjamin Button is correct. It's all good. I thought you would have problems with this because it's not the sort of original posters for most
Right.
of them. It's
See,
the sort of a selling poster. It's sort of the artwork stuff.
I see.
for
I
most
see.
of them.
Because usually the reason why I said you showed that Christopher Reeve one for only a second, just so you know, I'm very familiar
Yeah.
with Christopher Reeve. It's just somehow he looked so airbrushed that I thought maybe this couldn't have been in the 70s because it almost seems like artwork from the 2000s. So that's why I was.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, if Tom in the chat probably will correct me, it is one of the artworks that they did originally, but it
Oh, okay.
any VHS tapes. It wasn't. It's sort of one of those posters that they just hang.
I
out.
see. I see. I didn't remember it, but you know what? It is what it is.
It's
obviously it
okay.
was Superman.
Yeah, obviously. But what I wanted to say is one of those things, and I think what they did was they brought it back for one of the DVD releases,
It's
if
possible.
I'm not
It's
mistaken.
possible.
So they wanted to not use the original; they just used it as one of the DVD releases, either the 4K or the Blu-ray or whatever they.
If
they
you
just
saw
reused.
that crappy Flash movie, then Christopher Reeve kind of looked like he did in this photo in
Exactly.
that movie.
Exactly.
It could have been the Flash. That's what I didn't like about it. He looked so artificial in that movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was gonna say Melina. That's a real deep cut for Monica Bellucci. But I was gonna say the raunchiest one. It's a great film, but also it's a very hard watch.
I know which one you mean.
Irreversible.
Irreversible. The one
movie's
where
good.
she gets graped by Vincent Cassell.
It's a
very hard watch.
It's a very, very good revenge film. If you
Yeah, but
it's
there
a
are
hard
moments
watch
there-
though.
Yeah, there are moments there where like the story's great, but maybe I didn't want to see all of it.
Yeah.
One of those. I want to move on because I want to touch upon like there's the scene where you guys can see it in the like I can flash it up on screen. One of the first scenes that was actually shot just because of that previous neck surgery was those scenes in the office where they kind of eventually capture a Neo or Mr. Anderson, and then they interrogate him. By the way, the shot where he's got his mouth gagged, it was an actual mouth gag at some point. There was a CGI moment, and then it turns into an sort of a
Practical
practical
effect, yeah.
mouth gag, and he had to wear that mouth gag for 12 hours. So no drinking, no food, just breathing. And Keanu's a soldier. Like I have to say, after like reading all this stuff with the injuries, because you can get into more stuff with like specific injuries, like neck injuries and knee injuries and all that stuff. But a lot of these, like Hugo Weaving, Carrie-Anne Moss, Fishburne, and Reeves, undergo like a lot of bruising and a lot of like really like terrible. Like there's a 12-hour, 15-hour shoot some days, and they had to go to their trailers, like sleep for like 5-6 hours, and then go back at it again with the fighting scenes. And they had to endure quite a lot of pain through all this. And you can like definitely tell that they were up for it. They were completely up for it. Even when they had wire work, all that stuff, they say, look, this is really uncomfortable, but we understand the vision and how good it kind of gets. And I think I saw one of the interviews with Laurence Fishburne, and he actually said, and this is like a couple of years after the movie came out, sort of a promotion to the second and third movies. He said that it is so rare to be a part of an iconic movie, and I got to be in 2. And right before he said 2, like right after he said 2, I was kind of hoping he said Boys in the Hood was the second one.
Yeah.
But it's actually Apocalypse Now. Like he was 17 years old when he did Apocalypse Now, but it's sort of
so 3 technically.
3 technically, not 2, but he said 2. They were really into making this movie legitimately a great movie beyond the just being an action movie. And
I want to say that the way you described it, that they had the 600 pages and how meticulous they were in the first one, it really also explains to me why the second and third one aren't on that level. I feel like in the second and third one there was more of a rush to sort of get those movies out there, and I don't feel that they planned and prepared in quite the same way. You can say they have very nice set pieces, and maybe they kind of are nice, but there's something about this one. It's like also, I think maybe Feelings was saying it, or you were saying it, that there's no dead scene in the first Matrix. There's no filler scene. Every single shot, every single thing, even the smallest little planting and payoffs, everything means something, and there's no fat. You watch from the beginning until the end. Every single shot that's in this movie should be there. Whereas the second one, I just felt they were standing around there. He's talking, they're going, they're coming. I never felt that same kind of urgency, even in the second one. And by the time we got to the third one, I was really kind of just bored, to be honest.
And you would think it's about the running time. You would think, oh, maybe it's like an hour 45 where it's like snap.
No, it's long.
No,
and
it's
it's
2 hours, 2 hours and 15 minutes. Yeah, it's a long film. It's long, especially for an action film.
Yeah, and you would think, whoa, wait a minute. It's like, yes, the only part where it's a little bit too long is that last scene where it takes a long time to get to the point where Neo is dead, then resurrection, then the entire, like the squiddies going into the Nebuchadnezzar, where it's a little bit too long if you really think about it critically. But every single shot, every single moment had to be there to explain that whole transition, the whole moment where the movie, even though it's a little bit urgent, where the squiddies kind of go into the Nebuchadnezzar, and
it's a meanwhile situation, but it's good.
Trinity takes a long while to explain Neo, the sort of dead Neo, that she loves him. And it's like, the fucking squiddies are inside. Just tell him you love him already. It's all a delay for story purposes. It would take a second in real life, but it's not real life. It's a fantasy. It's a sci-fi fantasy. It's a sci-fi action movie. But you have to let the moment linger. But when she just tells him she loves him, he wakes up, and then the entire thing kind of springs back to life, even though there's a slow motion moment in it. But it's so deliberate. But I want to
Paul has a good point about the video games also as ancillary, and also the animatrix that was put out after this with other side stories that were involved around the not only the robot uprising, but also with what's going on with actually Zion before they had Zion committed to film.
Yeah.
But just the stating of the video game portion, 'cause if you really think about it in so many ways, a lot of the characters act like NPCs.
Yes, but that's
Yes.
deliberate. It's
Yeah.
deliberate. In the first movie,
know.
it's very,
I know.
very, very deliberate. I want to touch upon a bit of pop culture, a little bit of culture war, even though in this show we really don't touch upon the culture war, but it's a very high stakes moment. And I have a personal, not issue, but a personal story with this one. And you guys already seen this.
Oh, the red pill, yeah.
The red pill. Now, I don't want to go deep into the weeds with this, but when this came out, after let's just bring it back to reality. When the Matrix 4, when they did Matrix Resurrection, the Wachowskis said that when they wrote this moment, they already knew they were going to go into transition. And I would say poppycock to that. I would use an English word, poppycock to that, because the whole red pill and blue pill thing, meaning blue pill, you stay in blissful
It's just an allegory to Alice in Wonderland. Like they had countless of them beforehand, so I don't know why they're trying to now put that into a different subtext.
I mean, I have a strange relationship with these persons, because the thing is that when they made this, I know you said we're not going to get into a discussion. I'm not getting into a discussion, but when they made this,
you can go into whatever you want.
when
You
they
can
made
go
this, I
wherever
won't
you
name
want,
who they
like-
were when they made them, but when they made them, they were dudes that were married with families and stuff. And anytime you see any kind of footage or interviews or whatever, it doesn't seem like they're anything else except for that. And it's also not like the second this was made, they were anything else. Years later to now tell this story like, oh, it was always what we intended. I personally just don't believe it. This movie stands alone as a movie that tells the story that it tells. I don't think it has anything to do with that other thing. And they can do whatever they want. They're adults. They could do whatever they want in their private lives. But this, to me, I don't accept this revisionism. And one of the part of the evidence to why I don't even accept it is look at Matrix 4 and see how crap it is, and you'll see that there's no point in even listening to what they say now.
One of the things that kind of put me in that mood, and not going into the whole culture war thing, is the fact that in the documentary, which was done at around 2001, about 2 years after the movie came out, you can definitely see people calling Larry and Andy, quite fondly, to be perfectly fair, and not going into that whole thing. I'm talking specifically about this moment. Very much like Oh My Feelings said, is the fact that it's a trope from C.S. Lewis. This is
Right.
knowing the behind the veil thing, knowing the truth, or staying blissfully ignorant, which was what this movie was all about. Do you want to know what the Matrix is? If you want to know what the Matrix is, I cannot explain it to you in the way that I cannot explain how to raise children if you don't have any children. I don't know how to explain a roller coaster to you if you haven't been on a roller coaster. It's a completely alien feeling, or experience, we'll call it, unless you actually feel it and experience that feeling. And this is what the red pill and blue pill is all about. And yes, it was coerced into, you know what's funny? The whole word woke. It used to be woke, being awake from the Matrix, awake from what the people kind of gave us. And that's what the whole culture war was all about, is being awake from the stuff that they told us in the like media, established media, all that good stuff. And now woke is being the blue pilled, actually, right? Being the unaware, blissfully unaware, and spouting off.
Yeah, today Morpheus wants you to take the blue pill.
Maybe. We don't know. I mean, like I said, it's all about showing, like you said in the movie, I want to show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. And if you're a conspiracy theory guy, if you're a guy that like already up to that stuff, if you've ever heard anything that George Carlin even said, there are stuff behind the stuff that people don't want you to see. Whether you believe it or don't believe it, it is your red pill, blue pill moment. And we've got like the white pill and the black pill now and all that good stuff. If you're into that whole spiel, yes, that whole thing came from this particular moment. And this is why The Matrix is remembered so fondly. Is one of the highlight points is this. Feelings?
Oh no, I agree with you. No, just on that sentiment again. I agree with Price there, where the revisionist history on their own film just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't.
They're just trying to score points with the media. They think that if they say that, the media will be like, "Wow, look, they're so stunning and brave." But
I was going to say, sorry, Price, for intruding.
go
One of my personal stories comes from actual Twitter, which we all know is not a real place. I had a friend that I knew, same community I knew All My Feelings from. It's like a gaming community. She transitioned. He was a he. I knew him as a he. He transitioned. All good. Not a problem with me. He's an adult. Can do whatever he wants. He felt as the way he felt. Still was my friend. I considered him as my friend. All good and all that stuff. And I tweeted that particular moment. And I said something really weird about that subject, about the fact that Lily and Lana said that it was all about a trans allegory. That's what they said before the Matrix 4 came out. And I said, I don't believe them. And I had a DM argument with that person, which resulted in him not following me and blocking me because reasons. I thought we had a reasonable discussion in like DMs. Ended up losing a friend, which is a shame because I don't particularly hate that person, but it felt so out of whack and made me really hate the movie just because I lost a friend on a stupid Twitter. I'm not even going to call it a beef.
I hope it made you hate Matrix 4 and not the first Matrix. The first Matrix is still a good movie.
I literally had there's a GIF on Twitter that uses the red pill, blue pill moment. And I commented about I think it was Lilly Wachowski that was trying to promote the movie and said it was a trans allegory. And I said, I don't believe you. This is definitely not a trans allegory. And I got flamed.
First of all, not to get into your own personal stuff, I think that this is an opinion. This is your opinion. Just I have the same opinion. Feeling has the same opinion. If you're a friend who was had a different background and felt differently about it and had an opinion about it, well, it's not the same as your opinion. But I don't think that's enough for somebody not to talk to you. And if that person doesn't want to talk to you anymore, sometimes things happen, and maybe you're better off for it. You don't need people like that in your life if they can't even have a conversation with you.
I completely agree. The whole point is that I don't mind. I don't mind their life choices. I don't live their life. It's like an internet friend. But the whole cutting you off because you have a different opinion. It's not even a political opinion. It's like I disagree with Lily Wachowski. That's it. And I want to touch upon what Davina Duckworth said. Yes, it comes from Jefferson's Airplane, White Rabbit song. I love that song.
Well, that's all just allegory to
it's Alice in Wonderland. It's through the looking glass.
Mephisto, I don't know if this will make you feel better, and it's just a minute, and then we'll go back to the thing, but I'll tell you that I had a similar incident, not with The Matrix, but with Doctor Who. that in those specials where they came back and they had a lot of
Oh
very
boy.
heavy-handed messaging when it comes to this exact subject. I made a video and I said something about it, and somebody that had been following me for a long time and watching my videos, and we were cool with each other. We'd sometimes DM, and we had a good rapport. And he basically sent me a DM, not of him writing, but he recorded a message of him cursing me out at the top of his lungs, yelling, and telling me that he's never going to talk to me again because I had an opinion in a video. And I didn't even respond. I didn't even do what you did. I didn't say, hey, what are you talking about? Let's be friends. I said nothing. I saw that he unfollowed me and unfollowed me. Maybe he blocked me. I don't even know. I think I unfollowed him. I don't know if I was blocked at that point. But I don't even care. I have nothing to say. If somebody feels that way, I just said to myself, I guess I don't need that person in my life.
That was my conclusion. Seriously, that was my conclusion. And it's one of those moments, I, again, don't want to get too deep into it. The moment that the issue is in the movie itself, it talks about something, it draws metaphors and allegories from something completely different, and it tries to actually explains trying to actually explains the Matrix to you without reciting Jean Baudrillard.
But even that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I say it's much more simple. You had an opinion. That person didn't agree with your opinion. That it's a disagreement of opinion. People can talk about a movie and symbolisms and things within it, and maybe they don't agree. The same thing that I also didn't understand why somebody was yelling at me. But people these days, they feel like if you don't. And for me, people that are like that, I think that they're like I said, they're not the type of people that I want to be engaged with. Because if at any moment you could say something that'll just be an personal opinion of yours, and somebody will just have a meltdown and lose their, I don't want to say a bad word, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I know.
Then they're not worth it. Then it's not worth my energy. I was annoyed for a few seconds. It bothered me, but you know what?
And then
we have other things to do.
And then you never thought about it again. Exactly the same experience I had. It was just, that's a shame. I'm going to move on with my life.
I would say, to be honest, too, as an aside, Meph, is a personal little inside joke. You know that this podcast would have been over by episode 3 if we just really once we deferred on an opinion. It would have been over.
Me and Phoenix have we agree on a lot of things, but opinions about movies, we have such different ways of looking at like movies that we both like, and we're looking at it from different angles. And it's so helpful to be educated about stuff that maybe you haven't thought about. Maybe you listen to a different opinion. And this is why I like talking about movies, because, and especially movies like this, and Dark City as well, is having a different perspective will maybe help you look at a movie in a different light. Maybe it could be, for some people, be a trans allegory. But for other people, it could be just a gay allegory. And maybe for other people, it's just an allegory about, I don't know, the world within the world that we experience today. Maybe the world that we experience today is a mask over our eyes, and the real world is actually going on behind the scenes, is what a lot of people do think. And this is what the book was all about, is what is the real? What is that concept? It's a very philosophical concept. What is real? Is the table I'm touching right now, is that real? Or is it just an electronic touch that I know from my brain knows that my hand is touching a table that makes it real, right? That's the whole concept of the Matrix. And when you wake up, that's in transition, by the way. When you wake up to the real world.
As an aside, too, that is also in itself, it's also with everything with Baudrillard, but also the allegory of the cave.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. That's the cave in Alice in the Wonderland.
No. In Socrates is the allegory of the cave.
Oh.
Yeah. We're talking like way before C.S. Lewis, my friend.
Yeah, I know. But it's a very philosophical question, and this entire movie deals with that philosophical question. But the whole point is that the philosophical moments are not hankered down because you've got so much story and action riddled throughout the story. You enjoy the story for what it is. Point of contention. It is not in my notes, but it's something that I put in my head to think about. When the stunt guy was inside that liquid, he got hypothermia. So when Keanu had to be in that liquid for the close-ups,
Oh, you're right. Sorry.
they
No, you're
actually
right.
had to heat up the liquid for Keanu in order to him not have hypothermia.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know so many people suffered to make this movie. I appreciate it even
lot
more
of-
now.
Yeah.
A lot of injuries. You know what? There's a moment where they save Morpheus, where they deal with the agent, where you have that bullet time moment of, that Neo does that mumbo dance to avoid the bullets, and he just barely scaves off with two shots, kind of grazing. The moment where Trinity is like, dodge this, and she shoots. Now, I thought that whole sequence, right after she shoots, he kind of, gets pulled away, or not, kind of, it's sort of jumping back, but not really, and then dying on the floor. I thought it was CG. It was practical.
Yep.
She actually had a gun, a prop gun, not a real gun. She shot. There was a little bit of like smoke coming out of the chamber, but nothing goes outside of the gun. The guy was being pulled by wires. They pulled him so hard, he fell on the floor and hit the back of his head and had a concussion. That guy went to the hospital later. But it was a full practical like effect scene. I thought it was completely CGI.
Just as an aside, too, can we just give a good solid round of applause of the snippy little one-liners that are in this film? Because some of them are real good. Because
Yeah.
they have two back to back that are great. Because the agent goes, only human, and dodge this.
Yeah. And there's also a moment where I don't know if it was intentional or not intentional. The fact that, and I was kind of leading up to the moment where after Neo kind of swallows the red pill, and Morpheus kind of puts him in that, the staging room, not actually in the Matrix, but it's staging room where he explains that humans are basically now batteries for these AI machines. And one of the things they kind of put him on, and he does that jump where he kind of goes through the training, and Neo has that first jump. Morpheus does the jump, and Neo does whoa. And it kind of is synonymous with Keanu Reeves, where in almost every movie he has that whoa moment, and it's his line, sort of like the I'll be back of Schwarzenegger. He's known for his woes. I don't know how they incorporate that in, but they did. Whether it's intentional or not, it's just a funny little moment.
Well, it also,
when I saw it,
again,
I was like,
Joey Pants gets to be kind of the comic relief, also the big douchebag in the film, because of course it's Joey Pants. After Memento, that's what he's really known for. But he also gets to have the line where after Neo takes the pill, just because Davina mentioned the Wizard of Oz, Kansas is going bye-bye.
I know we're gonna run out of time at some point, but I want to touch upon this scene because one of the momentous scenes. Again, he does that jump. Neo does the jump. He falls, and everybody's so disappointed because Neo was supposed to be the one. And
Right.
one of the things that kind of reminded me, and I'm not a spiritual guy, but the more years I pile on to my history, we'll call it that, the more I go into scripture when I watch movies, I find parallels and maybe inspirations. One of the things to me for this movie is the story of Moses, because some people say no, Neo is Jesus. Neo is not Jesus. Neo, at least for the first movie, is Moses. Moses is a guy that was a reluctant hero. He didn't want to go back to Egypt. If you know the story, he didn't want to go back to Egypt, but God was in the burning bush and was like, you are the one. You're the one that will get Israel back to the land of Canaan, right? That's the story. And he was like, I'm just a guy. I ran from Egypt because they wanted my head when they discovered I killed that Egyptian dude. I was like, no, you are the one. Like, you barely, like, you stutter and everything, but you are the one that will lead your people out of Egypt. Neo is the same. They keep telling, like, Morpheus keeps telling him, you're the one, you're the one. Even Trinity is like, you are the one. The Oracle said so. And when he gets to the Oracle, it's like, you're not the one. But she doesn't say that at first. She says, it seems like you're waiting for something. Which,
Well, no, she does. She does actually. Essentially, he says, "Well, what do you want me to say?" So
Yeah.
I'm not the one. Right. Well, she also says the line, "Well, cute, but not too bright, though."
yeah, because he's like, the whole point is, I watched that scene like 3 times. Now I watch it, run it back 3 times, especially because I wanted to listen to what she says. She definitely says, you've got potential, but you seems like you're waiting for something. That is kind of like the first thing she says. And when he opens his mouth and kind of have that conversation of, are you, like, you think you're the one, but you're not the one, but what do you think is, and what you said is like, you're not too bright though, because he was supposed to say, maybe I am the one, or maybe I'm not. But
Well, and then
exactly,
she also essentially just lays out the entire plot of not only the rest of the film, but the rest of the entire trilogy. If you pay attention, it's like she basically just lays it all out for you.
like I said, which leads me to the fact that, yeah, maybe they planned 3 movies, but I'm not sure they planned the 2 sequels as they actually went down.
You know, sometimes when you make a film and you're even thinking that of the possibility that there could ever be future installments, maybe you want to just drop a few things in there that leave an opening. I mean, even look at George Lucas in Star Wars. There's a few things that are said there that kind of open doors. But when he made that movie, he didn't know if he would ever get a sequel. That movie, nobody believed in it. He believed in it, but that doesn't mean that it was for sure going to happen the way he thought. And he still put things in that movie that lay the groundwork for a few other things to happen. And a good filmmaker does that. And I think that the Wachowskis at this point, they at least thought to themselves, let's at least have a few things in here that open doors for things later. Like saying that there's the last human city of Zion, like what you just mentioned. Just little things that maybe you could just follow up on later. By the time they got to following up on them, they just didn't do it very well.
No, that's the point. The point is, even if they, like I said, even if they had the 2 movies, they had the plot line for the other 2, sort of like the through line of what points we were supposed to hit. Even with Agent Smith and all that stuff, making him, like, if you want to say, like the devil or whatever. But they didn't fill in the gaps correctly when they actually went to make those movies. But in this movie, it was much more to the point where, like I said, there's no dull moments because every moment counts. In Morpheus, in this particular scene that I have on the screen, is the fact that he necessarily explains to Neo how the Matrix actually work, and from that point on, every time the ground rules of how the Matrix is supposed to work comes in, and when they do get to the Matrix and they do deal with the agents coming in and cutting off the hard line and all these the cipher backstabbing part, the fact that they move from body to body using actual people that are plugged in and sort of in the mindset of we are the police or we are this guy or that guy, we can use that because the people who are plugged in and don't know the Matrix exists or don't even suspect, they are willing participants, and they can, plug in, plug out, and they are disposable as much as what you think of as a battery is disposable.
Just as an aside, too, I do love the fact that the Wachowskis actually clearly made it absolutely clear that they couldn't just unplug.
Yes. And that
because that would be obviously your first nitpick as someone watching them, like, well, yeah, just unplug them. Well, if they do that, they instantly just basically sever their connection to their mind and they die.
And they also set up the fact that if you are in and you are hurt, your brain makes it real.
It's the old concept of if you die in your dreams, you die in real life.
And
yeah,
what really connects us to the whole point of Freddy Krueger, but in the Freddy Krueger franchise, it works sometimes, but sometimes it really doesn't work. So the ground rules are constantly being broken to serve.
Well, they constantly change. You know why?
Because
Freddy Krueger is a bitch. Bitch.
Yeah. But it's kind of like that where, but in this movie, I'm specifically talking about this movie, when they set up the ground rules, they do not break those ground rules. No. They sometimes bend it a little bit because Neo is the one, so he dies in the Matrix. But he doesn't really die because, like I said, the Oracle already said to Trinity, you're going to love this man. And because you love him, he's not going to die. That is your destiny. It manifests itself without us seeing that interaction. We only hear it right, like close to the end. That's why I said that sort of Trinity scene kind of lingers on a bit too much because she has to explain that moment. Even though if you really pay attention,
it was
obvious. Kind of there from the not the very first minute, but as soon as Neo gets unplugged, it's very palpable. Yeah. Very palpable.
Just as an aside, can we just give a little slow clap for Mr. Joey Pants, a cipher? Because that scene in the restaurant, it's fantastic.
I love Joey Pants.
He's great.
Like, what I've realized is ignorance is bliss. And then the harp solo, and then it goes, I want to be somebody important, somebody powerful, like an actor. I'm like, oh, Joey.
It's so much of a Joey's been he's been in Memento, which I don't particularly like, but it's such a and with Carrie-Anne Moss, which is mind-boggling. But yeah, probably they got that part right after this movie came out. I was like, the man has been in such an iconic movies that you don't even think about. Even Bad Boys. It's like the start of Michael Bay's career as an action director with explosions and all that stuff. And Joey Pants is smack in the middle of it.
Right there. Yeah.
It's right there.
Joey Pants is always one of those actors where you go like, oh yeah, I know that guy.
Right.
One of the things that like kind of to round up the Joey Pants thing, because it's one of the last scenes is the fact that he's been unplugged. They got separated due to the fact that they had an ambush and all that stuff. Morpheus gets captured because he sacrificed himself to save Neo because
Neo.
Morpheus believes in Neo wholeheartedly, even though at this point us as the audience, if we don't know the end of the movie, we were like, Morpheus believes in Neo, and Neo, we saw his interaction with the Oracle, and the Oracle, not in so many words, say, well, maybe you're not the one, but Morpheus really believes you are the one, and you'll have a choice to make, to choose to be the one, or to choose to run, to try and save Morpheus and not run. Sorry, right?
Well, and what the Oracle says does end up coming true when she says, "Well, one of you will die and one of you will live,"
Yeah.
because at the end of the Matrix trilogy, guess who lives and guess who dies?
To be fair, it actually fits within the confines of this movie because technically Neo actually dies in this movie.
Right. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be a trilogy because technically you're right.
True,
He
yeah,
does die.
He makes the choice whether it's your life or Morpheus's life, and one of you will die. So he chooses Morpheus's life. He chooses to go out, do the I don't know, the right thing or the courageous thing, we'll say, and save him because he's more important to Zion, more important to the cause. And Neo actually does think or does believe he is not the one. He is good, but he's not the one. So he goes out and saves Morpheus, and he sacrificed himself because he dies. He does a resurrection.
when
but
we get to the end. Yeah.
dies.
But I was gonna say where we were at. Just as Cypher pulling his big backstab moment, not only like killing Dozer in real life and shooting Tank, but then that entire unplugging scene with APOC and Switch, it just makes me laugh because I always think of the old gaming community that we were part of, Meph.
Yes.
Because his
Not like this.
the guy's guild name was not like this.
Yeah.
And their whole thing was just the meme Switch saying
Exactly.
not like this.
This movie came like there's so many memes. Like you can go on Twitter or on Giphy or on Tenor or whatever you're using for your GIFs, and there are so many different moments in this. One of them is this, right, where it captures a moment in the movie, and you can spin it off to whatever you feel like it. The fact that one of the moments when I saw the movie, like for the very first time, and it was like, okay, I was completely confused. I was totally in the movie. It's like, I don't know if Neo is the one or not the one. I think at this point, I thought Morpheus is the one. And it was like, there's a moment where he says, if he talks to Trinity on the phone, and was like, if he is the one, there is no way I can pull this thing and he lives, right?
Yep.
Like, there's no way I pull this thing and he lives if I, like, he can't be the one. And there's nobody here to stop me. And then Tank stops him and he says, I don't believe it. Which, to me, at that moment, I was like, okay, no matter what happens, Neo is the one. Because it was so obvious that he could just do it and get it over with. But something in him lingered on for some reason, and he just didn't do it.
I think it felt like more coincidence, and if we get into, especially when it comes to the sequels, which when
I want to put
when
it.
Neo has actual real powers and like the actual real world, it's like no.
I want to keep it within this movie because if you're just talking about this movie, if you delete the fact that there are no sequels, if you're putting it yourself in this moment, and you're like, you still don't believe Neo is the one, that's the moment for me when I watched this for the very first time. I was like, okay, Neo's the one. I don't know what the ending is, but Neo is the one. And
Well, I'll tell you what. I didn't think. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say that I didn't know if he was the one or not, but what their definition was or wasn't of the one, I still thought that he could do something good. Meaning, in my eyes, when I saw this movie, I thought to myself, they have this definition of somebody that's supposed to be this kind of savior, but what if he he isn't exactly the type of savior they were expecting, but maybe he can bring something to the table because he's awesome regardless. That's what I was thinking to myself when I saw it, because I still thought if she said he wasn't the one, maybe their just perception of what the one isn't exactly what it is. That was my thought the first time watching it.
I was aiming for exactly specifically that. What if the one isn't the one you think it is? It's not the almighty prophet that will bring down the Matrix and set Zion free. Maybe it's just a guy that has a different experience. Maybe it's just a guy who is willing to sacrifice himself for the greater good. Maybe that is the one. Maybe it is a Jesus moment, but not in the way you think it is.
Or I thought that, somebody like Morpheus and Trinity, they could sure use some good people on their team, and maybe Neo brings a lot to the table, and you don't need these kind of titles. That's what I think I was thinking.
Well, especially after what happened with Cypher, they're going to need a lot more people.
Right, they're going to need better people. Human resources needs to get involved there.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is I don't think you could find that on anybody's LinkedIn page.
Definitely. All right, we're going to do a stop here, and we're going to move on to our second game of the night. A little bit more casual, a little bit more fun. It is called Screen Fighter.
Round 1. Fight.
Screen Fighter for Price and the uninitiated in the chat is where we take two movies, pit them together, and see which one is the best one. If there's no discernible difference between the two, both of them are good or both of them are bad, we fall into our secondary criteria, which is Friday evening, Saturday evening, out with the boys, out with the girls, out with their significant others. Two movies in a vacuum. Which one will we pop in? And we've got a doozy over here. All right. Oof. This is Rocky 2 or Die Hard with a Vengeance. Which one will you watch? Price, floor is yours.
Rocky 2.
Like a small little reason why would it be Rocky 2?
I if you would have said Die Hard 1, I probably would have given it to Die Hard 1. But I really like Die Hard 3. I really, really like it. Rocky 2 is such a special movie. It's those early Rocky movies for me. Maybe it's a sentimental thing. I don't really know, but just my instinct says I have to go with Rocky 2.
All right, cool. Feelings?
While I really love Rocky 2, I think it's actually my favorite of all of the Rocky films. Man, I love Jeremy Irons and Samuel L. Jackson in Die Hard with a Vengeance. I really love that movie. I'm going to have to go with Die Hard.
Okay. Guys in the chat, please just tell us what you think, because sometimes it will be the deciding voice. For people who know me, I think people would think I would go with Die Hard 3. However, I recently rewatched it.
You watched all of them with your kids, right?
I watched all three of the Die Hards. I even watched Die Hard 4, actually, with the Warlock scene and all, because I refused to watch the fifth one. I watched Rocky with my kids. All of them, including Rocky Balboa, and I've seen Rocky Balboa again 2 days ago. Rocky 2 is the best film of all of them. All of them. It is the best story. It is the best plot line. It drudges on like the first three movies, but they all drudge on until the midway point. They all do it. Rocky 2 is, first of all, it is the much better movie than Die Hard 3. I prefer Die Hard 3 to Die Hard 2, even though I love Die Hard 2 as well.
No, there is no comparison. There's no comparing Die Hard 3 to Die Hard 2.
I love Die Hard 2. Die Hard 3 took it a step better. I love the interaction between Samuel L. Jackson and Bruce Willis, but I'm going to go with the Rocky 2. All right. Chronicle or Weird Science? I haven't seen Chronicle. Price, have you seen Chronicle?
No, I don't think I have. I've seen Weird Science.
I think you'd actually really like it. It's kind of it's a take on the new kind of
For
almost.
for this particular game, I'm gonna put on. Haven't watched.
Yeah,
it.
haven't seen it, but I would say go ahead and check it out. It's basically like a new version of a almost found footage with
Oh, then
kids
I would
that become
definitely-
superheroes.
No. Then I would definitely hate it. All right, MASH, original movie MASH or Weird Science, Bryce?
This is
Weird science. MASH is for me. You know what? I know a lot of people love MASH, but I'll be honest with you. And this is just something that's personal to me. I don't love movies about war, even if they're funny or not funny, unless it's like a straight up satire of sorts. That it's that kind of funny, like a Tropic Thunder or something like that. Generally speaking, when there's a war, it's not my thing. It's a good movie, MASH. It's a good movie. I'm not saying it isn't. And I could understand why everybody would choose MASH over Weird Science, but sorry, I'm going with Weird Science, even though MASH is probably the better movie.
Okay, feelings?
Oh, I have to wholeheartedly agree. I even liked Weird Science, the TV series they did in the mid-90s.
Oh, you are crazy person with Vanessa. Oh, the girl from fucking Wheel of Fortune.
Vanna White?
No,
Vanna
that's
White.
no. That wasn't Vanna White.
It wasn't Vanna White?
No, her name was Vanessa, and she was a
It was
model.
Vanessa.
Yeah, but
Oh, I tell you where she was in the spy
she
movie
was in
with Dan
Kingpin.
Aykroyd. Yeah, she was. She was in that movie that I don't remember the name of with Dan Aykroyd and Chevy Chase, where they ended up in Russia trying to stop the
Spies
Russians.
Like Us?
Like Us.
Spies
Right.
Like Us, yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
People remember MASH the movie because they remember MASH the TV series,
show.
which was way better than the movie. Weird Science, for me, easy.
Well, and also one of the main major villains was a very, very young Mr. Robert Downey Jr.
Serenity or Lady and the Tramp? Bryce?
To be honest, I'm trying to remember what Serenity is. So, and not that what is it? Sorry.
It's the Firefly movie.
It's basically the ending of Firefly.
I didn't see it, unfortunately, and I will have to go with Lady and the Tramp because I've seen it and I didn't see the other one.
Okay. Feelings? Just
I would have to go with Serenity just because I really like the
I
way
don't-
that it really wrapped up the end of Firefly very
okay.
well.
I definitely I would not put it. I haven't seen it, but Paul Harley said Lady and the Tramp. Paul,
Paul,
this
come on.
I can't. All right, Star Wars: The Last Jedi, or Kiss
Well,
Me.
I'll tell you the truth. There's anything you would put that's not Star Wars: The Last Jedi, I would have chosen that one. So obviously, it's Kiss Me Deadly.
I haven't seen Kiss Me Deadly. I'm sure it's.
I would say it's actually is a very, very good movie.
I haven't seen it, but I am willing to bet that I like it better than The Last Jedi because The Last Jedi is one of the movies that I've liked the least in my life. So
Yeah.
What, you don't like no blue milk? Come on.
Oh, shush.
it's
Straight
green
from-
milk. It's green milk.
A $1 Million Baby or Oliver and Company, which I have sadly seen.
I have two.
Bryce?
I don't remember Oliver and Company. It seems familiar, like maybe I've seen it, but I don't remember. And $1 Million Baby, I've seen it and I remember. So what am I gonna do? I'll choose that one. I'm
I'm gonna
what?
do a reroll on Oliver for
Okay, I'll do a reroll
Yeah.
because to be fair, I've seen it once. Right. Cool. $1 Million Baby or Angels and Demons, which is the second
Dan Brown.
Brown movies with Tom Hanks.
You know, I saw Angels and Demons. It was all right, I guess. I think that Million Dollar Baby is a good movie, but it's a bummer.
Yes.
And
Yes.
whereas Angels and Demons is just not such a great movie, it's just all right. If I had to go like based on merit, I guess I would go with $1 Million Baby, even though if you ask me now, if I was forced to rewatch one now, I'd probably go with Angels and Demons, not because I even like it especially, just because I know it's not a bummer.
And this is why this whole segment actually exists, because I talked about this with All My Feelings like a way back when. I think you remember this, Feelings. It's like sometimes we get a movie that one of them is really better than the other one, but I would watch it only once.
Yeah.
And
It's-
to me, $1 Million Baby is one of those movies. I watched it twice in my life. Once recently. I don't want to watch this movie again.
We've talked about this before, Meph, where there are films that we consider them one and done films. Like
Yes.
the movie is fantastic, it's such a great film, but I never want to watch it again.
You know, one of those movies, and you can criticize me all you want. I've seen Brokeback Mountain. I don't want to watch it again. I was like,
I regret seeing it the one time that I did see it.
it does nothing for me. I get it's the love story. I get it's an impossible love story. Blah
It's a
blah 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 blah.
sham.
I don't want to need. I don't need to see it again. I can watch Heath
Well-
Ledger in I don't know a Knight's Tale and get a much
Well,
more enjoyable time.
To be
Right?
fair, I felt the same way about The Pianist, Meph. Like
Same. I
fantastic movie, but
all right. The Girl Who Kicks the Hornet's Nest and Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome.
oh, Tina Turner.
Wait, is the girl that kicks the hornet's nest? Is that
It's this
The sequel to The Girl with the Dragon
the
Tattoo.
girl with the dragon tattoo.
right? But okay? There was 3 movies in Swedish or whatever it is.
Yes.
There's 3. There's one movie that with Daniel Craig, and then there's one movie where they had what's her face, the lady from The Crown. Which one is this one?
That's the one with the lady from The Crown.
Crown. Yeah.
Yeah. Because
You
the
know-
other one is Rooney Mara.
Right. I think Claire Foy. I like the actress Claire Foy. I like her, but the movie itself was mostly forgettable. I watched it. It wasn't the worst thing I've ever seen, but I also didn't ever feel like going back to it. Mad Max, if out of the 3 movies, this is the one that I like the least. Fury Road for me is like a write-off. I know people like
Yeah.
it, and that's good and good for you. But these 3 movies are for me. That's Mad Max, and this third one is my least preferred movie out of the 3. But I would probably still watch it over the Hornet's Nest.
Yeah. And to me, the Hornet's Nest was maybe very similar to what I felt like with The Matrix 2, where the first movie was really good and the book was really good. The second book was just as good as the first one, but it translated into something that was too raunchy, too much action, too much of something that was not really in the book in order to cater to I hate saying modern audience, but semi-modern audience.
All I know is this: I saw the 3 Swedish movies, the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo trilogy of Swedish movies. For me, that is the trilogy.
Yeah.
The one with Daniel Craig, as much as I liked David Fincher, felt like they tried to do it too Hollywood, and something that I liked about the Swedish language one was taken away because it just felt very Hollywood-ish, and I didn't like it as much. It was well made, it was very professionally made, and yet I don't consider it on the same level. And this other one was just something that I don't even know if it had the source material. I don't even know what it was doing, the Hornet's Nest one. I like Claire Foy. Maybe I even like Claire Foy more than Rooney Mara, but none of that really matters because the movie is even more forgettable than the Fincher one.
You know, I think I completely agree with you, Price, because it felt kind of hollow. The same way I feel about the oddly enough, the Swedish version of Let the Right One In and the American version of Let the Right One In.
Sometimes a certain culture they have their own thing. They have their own thing, and it rings true the way they tell their story. And with The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, I felt that the actors that they chose, the whole setting, it felt much more like I don't know if to say realistic. I don't know what word I'm looking for, but I was able to buy that more than I was able to buy anything else that wasn't the Swedish language one.
Like it felt more authentic.
Yes, it felt
Yeah.
more authentic.
I was gonna say it's like watching the Japanese version of The Ring or Ringu, and
yeah,
watching The Ring with Sarah Michelle Gellar. It's
Or
this-
watching
But
the Korean version of Old Boy and the American adaptation of
Yes.
Old Boy. It's like
yes, and
no.
you turned me on to Old Boy, you mother effer.
Hey, that's because I saw the devil, which
I
still,
know,
like,
and that's
great
another
movie.
thing you turned me on to, which did not get the Hollywood treatment, by the way. And
Thank
I had
God.
to for it because watching the original version and like the Korean original version was such a big impact. It was like, yes, I want to know more. and I know there is more, but I'm so stuck in my Hollywood whatever spiel. I need to like get out of my head and take the time and watch it, and it just enriches your sort of movie going experience or just critical experience. I don't know what to tell you. It's just made other movies better, or made the old movies that I liked even better.
So while we back to the movie, I was gonna say in the interim, while we have Cypher taking out everyone, we also have basically we have Smith going on his tirade, the first part of his tirade.
We have a very limited time, but one of the highlight points is the fact that Agent Smith is not like the other Sentinels, where he is.
The agent, he's more sentient. He's almost sentient in a way, yeah.
I would say has emotions where he's angry. He's actually resenting having to be in the Matrix in his Agent Smith form, because even though he's a machine, he can taste and feel. He said, I can taste your stench or stank, and is like, how can a machine know tastes and smells? And they kind of talk about it when Mouse was still alive. It's like, how do they know how tasty wheat tastes like?
Yeah,
Or
the same thing. Like, why do you think everything tastes like chicken? Because they couldn't figure anything else out.
Exactly, and now as a juxtaposition, how can he feel or taste or smell a stench because he's a machine? So he's something that is sort of in the middle or different from other machines. He's maybe on the way to being that middle ground kind of a thing, where Neo is being on the middle ground of having to be outside of the Matrix, but inside of the Matrix kind of an entity. Mm-hmm. Smith is also an outside of the Matrix entity that is also living on the inside, in kind of indulging in emotions and smells and tastes and feelings. But after that moment, we have the moment where Neo decides to have in his hands, his literal hands, Morpheus, as in deciding to unplug him or not, or his own life, whether he's going to go back into the Matrix and doing the impossible, which is at this particular, up to this particular moment, they ran away from agents, and choosing to not run away from the agents, actually standing up to the agents and test your actual muster or might or whatever you want to call it.
And let's be fair, Tank is making the right decision here. By wanting to pull the plug, he's making the right decision. Because there's been no evidence whatsoever of them being able to actually infiltrate a compound to save one person successfully ever.
Which leads us to one of the most tricky set piece that they had to actually do, because if you know it or don't know it, this entire fight is the most CGI that they actually used here is deleting the wires.
Yeah.
The entire room had to be rigged with actual explosives or mini explosives. They had to choreograph the entire thing. There was touching upon injuries once again. There's a moment where Trinity does sort of a cartwheel and then takes up the gun and shoots the guy, right? She did it like she rehearsed it, and when they filmed it for the very first time, she sprained her wrist really badly. And she started to like sob and cry, and they asked her, "What are you crying about?" And it's like, "I fucked up the stuff. Now I can't do it. You have to bring in my stunt woman, even though it's a close-up shot."
Yeah.
Because I hurt my wrist. And they were calming her down, like, relax, like, it's okay, we got it. And like 20 minutes after that, they had to set up the stuff again. and she did it again, even though she had a badly sprained like wrist, and she nailed it the second take. But a lot of injuries was
Went through
people
hell.
getting fucking stuff in their face, like minor injuries. People getting shot with hot, like stuff that was exploding, shrapnel, debris, all that stuff was very unpleasant room to be in when they shot this one. Same goes with when they were in the room where it was like sprinkling water and Neo was shooting the minigun. They had to rig a lot of these little tiny
Just as an aside,
on the bottom of this room filled with water.
oh, yeah. And just as an aside too, they would have shot the ever loving shit out of Morpheus.
Oh, like, for sure. If you've ever seen a Vulcan gun shoot, it's
He would have been torn to pieces. There's no way. around-
death and destruction.
Yeah, you can't just go. It's not a sniper rifle.
It's not really a sniper rifle, which leads us to one of the trickiest CGI moments in the entire movie, which is this particular moment, which was
The ripple effect.
they had to study how glass or different types of glasses
would
work.
actually blow out. Yeah.
They had to work with different miniatures for the helicopter. They had 4 different sizes. They had 4 different kinds of helicopter. They had to the entire scene took about 5 months to render correctly because there was a lot of stuff that they had to delete from the skyline as well.
Yeah.
A lot of it was very, very tricky to actually pull off. One of the last scenes to be put in print, full edit, full everything into the final edit. One of the last ones to go because the glass didn't break correctly when Trinity was smashed into the window. If you look at it, I'm gonna try and find it. The sort of the shattering that they had on the glass. There we go. This particular pattern was very difficult to actually pull off, apparently, even though it seems very simple. If you can tell, the break where this point, this isn't correct. They wanted a spider web pattern, and they could not get it. They just could not get it. It just took a long time to do, and it's like a very simple. When you think about it, it's a very enormous set piece, but to pull off the different elements was very difficult. Again, about 5 months to render and complete and VFX and all that stuff. But it's one of those scenes where you think Neo's the one. Morpheus definitely thinks he's the one, but you still don't actually know because he didn't pull off something spectacular. It was mostly done to like the regular know-how of how the Matrix works.
Well, no, we did get the one bit where he actually did do the bullet time dodge, where even Trini said, "I've never seen any. You move like them. I've never seen anybody move that."
Yeah. That was just before that scene. But we touched upon that when we kind of talked about it before.
Yeah. And we basically just have the setup to the final full fight between the confrontation between Smith and Neo.
Yeah. This particular fight where it starts off with the bullet time guns, right?
Yeah.
Which again done in a full green screen room, but when they land, it's back to set. It's back to real set, practical, all of that stuff. And even this particular fight scene, they use the same kind of, if you've ever seen a Hong Kong martial arts movie from the 90s, when they hit, it sort of has that dust effect. They had to actually hit each other in order to make that dust effect work. Mm-hmm. And it just adds that extra punch to the actual punch. So a cinematic punch, I would say. I don't know how to say it differently, but a punch to the actual fist, right? When they have that little cloud of dust coming off. I can't explain it otherwise. You have
It adds gravitas to the impact of the bullet.
gravitas to the impact. Thank you. Thank you. Where it ends up with the Squiddies running through and finding out where the Nebuchadnezzar is in this particular scene. And lastly, that whole realization and resurrection. So the death of Neo at this point, where it didn't take just one bullet, he emptied out an entire fucking magazine on this guy, and he still got up. And we have one last
Note, for being a smart agent, no headshots. Come on, man.
Yeah. That specific point. The last kind of bullet point where it actually is with bullets, where Neo is resurrected, and then he, as Morpheus says, he believes in himself of being the one.
Yeah.
Where we see him actually use the system to manipulate the system. He uses the system, the matrix itself, to manipulate objects in the system, which is the bullets. He can stop the bullets. They drop down. And for a glimpse moment, we see what Neo sees as he looks through that corridor into those three agents, and he sees the matrix in its
The code,
bare,
which actually goes back to his conversation with Cypher, because he go like, no, because see, I'm seeing in the code, all I can see is brunette, blonde.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't see code anymore, and that's like that's what Neo is seeing now.
Yeah, that's kind of the last shot I want to talk about. But yeah, to have that whole
Well,
Neo goes.
It's like the other agents, unlike Smith, who was apparently able to feel some kind of sense of emotion or have some kind of visceral reaction to something in his anger.
Yeah.
They felt fear for the first time, because when he explodes Smith, they both have that almost kind of moment where like, oh fuck, and just run away.
It's the oh shit moment, basically. It was like, oh shit, that happened. I'm gonna run away. Which kind of leads up to that whole moment of Neo talking to
The phone call.
Yeah, that phone call where he talks to the system. It's like, I know you're afraid. It's like, there's a new sheriff in town and things are going to change. And it leads off to that Superman moment, which you guys don't like. I don't mind it. I kind of see it fitting. The fact that he can manipulate bullets, he can also manipulate anything else.
I thought also that if this would have ended the trilogy, that there would never be a trilogy, and that was the end of the movie, I think that it also symbolizes that, you know, now that he's where he's at, he's broken free of the Matrix, and it's sort of almost a symbolic ending, which, you know, it's a bit cheesy, you could say, but it gets the job done. I still thought to myself at that moment, this is the end. He's all powerful. And at that moment, when I saw it for the first time, I thought to myself, oh, this is really interesting, because in your life, you sometimes feel like you're in the Matrix, in the sense that you are part of all of these systems, and then he's kind of breaking free. So was it a bit much, the Superman flying? It's a bit much, but I think that the symbol of it and the idea of him being free is cool, especially if you don't ever have to see anything happen with him again later. This sort of leaves it open that you can walk away from this movie feeling, I can be free too. But then once they roll out the second and third movie, it feels like, oh, you can't be free at all. Like, this is crap.
It's sort of, they say, well, stuff is circular, and you're like the sixth, seventh version or whatever, and then you're like, no, it can't be that simple. And then it kind of ends up with it being circular, and it's like, what? That was the moment for me, for like, you can't say it's a circular thing. If you would have ended it on the first film and just not make any other films, you are, and I like when films do this, well written, maybe even up to philosophical film, which leaves you in sort of like you're left off with a good taste. It's a good ending. So the lovers finish up in each other's arms, essentially, right? The hero maybe died, but he got resurrected. So eventually, at the end of the movie, he lives. So he has a happy ending. He's got a.
There's only one. There's only one Matrix movie.
Well,
Yeah.
it's so many in the same ways. This could be comparable to the very first Star Wars film, because they could have,
Yeah.
George Lucas could have not made any films in that universe after the original, and it
And
would have been
left-
just its
yeah.
own standalone story, and it
And
would have been
left
fun.
Vader, like, because Vader finishes up. He is alive at the end of the movie.
Right, right.
It kind of spins off and tapers off into, okay, I've got a long drive ahead of me because the Death Star is exploded, but I live. So ultimately, and the Emperor lives as well, even though he's just mentioned and not shown. The fight is still there. Is very much open to interpretation, and you're left feeling like, oh, I want to see where this story kind of continues. But then when you see the story continues in this particular moment in the Matrix, like maybe
You didn't need to see it. In the case of Star Wars, George Lucas actually had real ideas for what he was going to do, and he did it. Whereas in the case of The Matrix, maybe they had some initial ideas in their mind, but whatever they had, they didn't bring into the screen in a way that justified the existence of the other movies.
or at least in a more satisfying ending, or a more satisfying moment that we had in the first film, where you did want to know more, but if you didn't, you sort of had that ending where, yeah, we know if he's the one, he's gonna make some changes. I don't know, maybe I don't want to see the changes. I felt really satisfied with that ending of the
I did
first
too.
Matrix.
I did
where
too.
I don't need to see the change. I don't want to see the ending of AI or the fight against AI. I just want to know there's somebody out there fighting for me where I'm plugged in. I don't know. There's a real satisfaction for me to say, well, at least I know Neo is the one. Because there was like I said, if you watch it for the very first time and you don't really know the answer definitively, you're left with that question until the very end, where he rises up from the dead and he becomes the one. And like, yes, I knew he could be the one. All right, that kind of brings us to the end of the show, ladies and gentlemen. That was great. Price, thank you for joining us today. It was an awesome talk. We
Thanks for
can
having
go
me.
on for another hour, maybe two, finding out all the philosophical meanings and everything. But thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. This was really fun. I like the discussion here that we were having. I think that there's a lot of interesting things that we said about the movie, and I enjoyed hearing your opinions and even just the little trivia behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah, that's always kind of helps break out the sort of monotony of just going into the weeds of stuff. This is what I like to do. Feelings? Anything else apart from, yes, I know we didn't touch upon the soundtrack as much as you liked, because
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
Just saying, if you do get the chance,
I wa-
definitely check out the soundtrack, because it is phenomenal.
it is phenomenal. And I came to the soundtrack from my love, like I said, for The Prodigy. I love their sort of industrial techno-based
Really techno-based,
music. I kind of grew up on that thing. Kind of somebody introduced me to that thing and was like, it really fits with the whole industrial moment. We haven't touched upon the fact that there was a lot of reflections in the movie, and it's intentional. A lot of mention of, again, going into Alice in Wonderland and look beyond the looking glass as well. All that sort of parallels. It's all within the philosophy of the movie that is beyond, is just touches on certain points, but it does rely on that particular philosophy, and it's really interesting if you want to read well into the weeds of what is the Matrix all about, what it represents, and all that good stuff. But otherwise, it is, although it has connections to Dark City in terms of story, and kind of blew my mind when Brahma Bull brought it up, I still think The Matrix is a very different movie from Dark City in terms of philosophy and the action elements that kind of brought it up to from where Dark City is a conceptual, very interesting movie to conceptual movie that is really good, and the action elements that put it way over the top and putting it smack down, like in the middle, in the center of pop culture, like bringing it to like the masses.
Well, and it's a really good thing too that the film came out when it did, because had it been scheduled for release just a month and a half later, it would have got delayed, just like Fight Club got delayed because of Columbine. Yeah.
Very interesting. But again, it's one of the movies that has belonged to the 1999 Club, one of the best
years of films.
Right, yeah. It's hard to believe. I remember that time. I was spoiled thinking that this is the kind of movies I should be expecting now. You know, The Matrix, Fight Club. That was really a good time for movies.
Yeah, 1999, one of the best years in movie history. If you go through the list, and I did on a 3.5-hour stream that is somewhere privated somewhere in the channel.
Yeah.
I went through all of them.
It's right up there with 84, right?
Right up there with 84. It's
Yeah.
one degree below that.
I don't think we've had another year like that since.
2004 came close. I'm still going through some lists. Never mind. Anyway, thank you, Price, for joining us. Guys, if you're still here, like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. But go follow Price of Reason for his takes on pop culture and like genuine like movie reviews that he likes, dislikes, all that good stuff. Rumble, live, all that stuff will be. I didn't put your live stuff in, but I will add it in after the show. All in the description down below. Next week, ladies and gentlemen, homework for next week. Go and watch The Road Warrior or Mad Max 2. Not Mad Max 1, Mad Max 2. Because we felt it's very much a different kind of dystopian future kind of a thing. And much more in, let's say, the zeitgeist, I would say.
Road Warrior is the best Mad Max.
Yeah.
It's the second one.
It's the second one, yeah, but it's the best one too, in my opinion.
I believe so as well. I truly do. I truly do. But
Just walk away. Just walk away.
Walk away. And we'll have Stone Loki coming back to us and talk to us about it. And until then, ladies and gentlemen, remember, hope is a good thing, maybe even the best of things, and no good thing ever dies. We'll see you next week. You're still here? It's over. Go home.